Hi, I'm Tayrn with Beaducation.com, and today we're going to make a stamped washer setting. We're going to use washers, hex bolts, and Swarovski crystals. Let's go! These are all the tools that you're going to need to make our project. We have a pair of hex wrenches, a screw down hole punch that punches a 1.6 millimeter hole, 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, Fat Daddy cutters, a Sharpie pen, and a file. For the stamping portion of the project, we used a letter set, various design stamps, a plastic mallet, a brass mallet, and a bench block. If you need more information about stamping, check out our stamping checklist. Here are some of the materials we used for our project. We have a copper washer that's 1 1/4 inches with an inner diameter of 7/8 inches, and it fits the 27 millimeter Swarovski stone. When you center it in the washer, you'll notice you have about 2 millimeters, maybe 2 and change, and it's just enough to accommodate the bolts. This is a tight fit, but it works. I think it works pretty well. Then we move on to the 1-inch washer with an inner diameter of 5/8 inches. And it works great with the 18 millimeter Rivoli crystal. When you put it in, you notice you have a lot more around the edge, maybe like 4 millimeters. That works great. Excess is fine. If you have too little, that's when you're gonna meet a challenge. The last one is 7/8 inch washer, and it has an inner diameter of a 1/2 inch. It works great with the 14 millimeter Swarovski Rivoli crystal. And you see this one has, it looks like the most excess, maybe 5 millimeters. And that one works really well too. Something important to keep in mind is that the inner diameter of your washer needs to be smaller than the size of your stone. So this one has a larger inner diameter than this stone, and the stone just falls through. So just make sure that your sizes work well and that your stone has a larger circumference than the inner diameter of your washer. We used hex, nuts, bolts, and washers. We have jump rings. Ideally, you want ones that have an inner diameter of 3 millimeters or larger, and tape. To protect the back of your Swarovski crystal, we use clear nail polish, and you can just coat it, and that'll give a protective layer, so when you wear it, the back won't wear away. So first we want to start off by having a circle divider. And luckily we have one online at beaducation.com/charts. So we printed this out. We're going to take our blank, center it onto the chart, and we want to make a little divider line right where the lines intersect with our blank. So we want to do it in quarters. So we're going to do the half and left to right. Grabbing a Sharpie, and I'm just going to make a little mark right where the line intersects with our blank. It doesn't have to be perfect, we just want it where the line is, and you can see we have our marks there. At this point, we want to pierce holes right where those marks are. And we're going to do them to the outermost corner because we want to make sure there's enough room for our stone. We'll just check again. You'll notice we're going to use this beautiful Swarovski crystal. And if I put it face down, you'll see there's about 2 to 3 millimeters along the edge. It's the same on the other side. My fingers are just in the way. So we're going to make sure we have a hole that fits in that small space. So we cleared the circle divider so we can focus on our blank. And we're going to now take our screw down hole punch. One of the sides is a 1.6 millimeter punch, and that is perfect. So we're going to take this and we're going to situate it where we've made our marks. So I'm going to bring this in and we're going to start to rotate it down. And you want to make sure that the pin coming down is in enough on your washer that it's not going to accidentally punch through the edge and have an open circle like a C. We want it to be a full circle in there. So I don't know if you can really peek in there, but there's a little bit of edge poking out, and we have it situated just right. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to rotate it so it pierces entirely through. And then I'm going to hold the blank. Blanks are kind of, I mean, the washer's perfect because you can keep your finger there, and it means that the blank's not going to rotate and wiggle around. We're loosening out, and we have a nice neat hole right where our mark was. So we're going to go ahead and do that all the way around. So as I pierce this last one, I'm reminded that bring the pin down. Oops. And when you screw it down, you just want to screw right to the point where you feel that it is pierced through the metal. And at that point, you want to back it off, because the top portion of the pin, you can see where the threading begins. If you continue to screw all the way down, then that piece of the tool will mar your metal, and you're going to have kind of an unsightly gash in there, unless that's what you're going for. So we like to back it out right when we know that it's pierced through. So here you can see we have all of our marks neatly pierced through, and there's no marks from the tool. So here we have our blank with all 4 of the holes punched in. This is a great example. We've polished it up and even hit it with steel wool, so it has a little bit of texture. This one's ready to go. Earlier, we have this other washer where I accidentally pierced the hole incorrectly. You can see that it went off the blank, so the hole is open, almost like a C. This isn't ideal. I actually think it's wrong, because although the hole kind of, like, you probably could pass a screw bolt through there and it might stay, the chance is that it could wear open and then that wouldn't work. So I think that this would be an excellent trial. This is a great way to test out your tool, so go ahead and keep punching to make sure you situate it correctly. But when you try and actually tighten everything, there's a chance that that could just pop out. So you really want it a full circle that's nice and secure so that all of the materials will stay in place. So we've taken the second washer and we've taped them together back to back, and you can use pretty much any tape you want. We're just doing this to make it easier for us as we pierce the second washer. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab, again, our screw down hole punch, and I like using the top holes as a guide, so we're just going to go in right over where we previously punched. And this time, you're going to make sure that the punch goes through the hole you already made. You don't want to pierce 2 holes that aren't, you know, we're making our hole bigger. So we're just going straight through the one we already punched and continuing through to the second washer. The tape just makes it easier that you don't have to worry about the washers separating out. And we'll continue and rotate, go all the way through. Take your time, making sure that the pin goes straight through the hole you previously punched. Okay, as we do the last one, it doesn't matter how perfect you do it, it's still important to mark a top place for your pendant. So we're just going to take our Sharpie and I'm going to mark a little V. I'm going to make this the top. This is just for us, so we're marking that, and I'm going to flip it and do it on the exact same. Whoop. Let's grab a different Sharpie. So we're just gonna do a V there and a V there. And that's because once these separate, if you rotate it, the chances of the holes matching up perfectly like they do now is not quite, I don't think the chances are very good. So now we have a marker. We have a top marker for both the front and the back. So now that we've gotten the technical part out of the way, the punching of the holes, we get to move on to the fun part. So this is where you get to stamp whatever you want on your washers. We have an example here where, because there's a front and a back to this pendant, you can have a lot of fun. We have one side stamped with a letter set. It says, "Believe you can and you will." And the other one, we use some design stamps to do some sort of pattern with hearts and asterisk stars. So something that is really good to keep in mind, remember how we had the little V positioned for the top and the bottom? We marked that on the inside now because as you polish and stamp, and you're going to stamp and polish, that's the better way of doing it, you're going to lose your V. So make sure you have it on the inside, and that way, whoa, here's the one V, there's the other. It'll still meet up. Let's see. Yes, ding, ding, ding. So the most important thing to do as you stamp is you notice that because the holes are already there, you want to make sure that you're a little bit delicate where the holes are. If you're really heavy-handed, there's a chance that you're going to distort the holes. It's not the biggest problem because we're working with hex screws, so since they're threaded, they still can really muster their way through there, but don't stamp it too much because we don't want that hole to close up. I don't even think that's possible, but let's not test it. So those are our stamped washers. One more thing. If you're pretty heavy-handed with your stamping, you're going to want to have a plastic mallet so you can flatten out your washer, because sometimes they get a little bit curved if you're really heavy-handed. If you're not really familiar with stamping, hop on over to our learning section, and we have a couple free classes on stamping taught by Lisa Niven Kelly, and they're excellent. So at this point, especially if you're a perfectionist, we're going to want to flip this over and polish off the inner V's. Once we put it all together, you're not going to be able to get in and polish that. But still keep everything kind of in place because you want to remember where your holes lie. Ooh, especially important with the design one because you can't really read it to see where the top is. So once we have that polished, I'm going to just put this in the exact same way, oriented. I'm going to grab the front one, the one that I want to be in the front, so I like the text, and I'm going to grab our bolts. So I have a little brass bolt, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to feed it through our holes. We'll put all 4 of them in. Whoops. There we go. They're tiny, so be patient with yourself because sometimes your hands are bigger than, well, my hands are always bigger than the bolts, but there we go. So we have those situated. To keep them in place, I'm going to use a little bit of tape just so that they don't fall out. And you can just lie it down just over the bolts. That's perfect. And then, again, I want to make sure what's the top. I don't know. There we go. Okay, there's our top, and I'm going to lay it down just like that. And I'm going to take our stone, and I'm going to lay it down just like that. The tape's going to make it hold. That's good. I'm going to take then a closed jump ring because once we start tightening it, there's a chance that we can tighten the washer so close that a jump ring won't be able to pass through. So I'm just going to thread that on right there. And then I'm going to take our other washer and we're going to start to wiggle it into place so that our bolts go through the holes. Oops. All right. This one's being a little sassy. Interesting. There we go. Okay, so they're situated in place. I'm going to grab some chain nose pliers and I'm just going to grab a washer and put them on top of our bolts. You can do this with your hands, you can do it however you like. You just want them on. Let's see, so the last one right there. Next, we're going to add the nuts to the bolts, and we're going to use our hex wrenches for that. So I'm going to go ahead and use my finger and grab one of the nuts, just like this. Then I'm going to take our hex wrench, I'm going to situate it over the nut, and we're going to bring it down close to our project. All right, and we're going to then cover the bolt. And I'm going to start to twist it. So when it's engaged, when the threading starts to engage, there you go, you can take it off. We don't want to tighten it yet because we're basically going to go all the way around, get them all situated, and then when we tighten it, we're going to tighten them evenly. You'll see we lost one of the washers, so we'll just go ahead and make sure that's on. I'm going to grab one more nut, put it into our hex wrench, and then the last one. So now we're going to tighten them, and we're going to tighten them all together so they get equal allocation. We want them to all be tightened the same amount. So we're going to work top to bottom, right to left. And I like to start one bolt, rotate it one turn, go to the bottom, rotate it one turn, then go right, rotate it one turn, and again left. And just keep going as it starts to tighten. You're going to notice the washer will get closer to the other washer. It's going to really, oops, I just didn't follow my own directions. When it gets to a point where you feel like it's getting tighter, that's when you can take off the tape. And you're going to want to use the other hex wrench. So then we can put it on one side. I'm going to change hands here. So we'll put it on one side and we'll do the same thing. I like to tighten like in one turn. So this one gets a turn and then we'll go to the other side. Just think opposite sides. If one side gets tightened, the other side gets tightened. And then we'll go. So you don't want to tighten it too much because you have a crystal in there and crystals can crack. There comes a point when you tighten it and it feels, if there's still a lot of give to it, then you're not tight enough. But when you start to get resistance all around, that's going to be good. You can see on the edge, this is smaller here, then it kind of starts to bow a little bit. That's fine because it's holding the stone in place. And I feel like this is a pretty good, I'll go ahead and give it one more turn and see how it feels. Maybe a little bit more. This is our last one. I think that's pretty good and tight. So we have the nuts, the bolts, and the screw, the washers, all set into place, nice and tight. We're going to flip it over to where the excess is sticking up. Now that our hex bolts are all tightened, we're going to go ahead and cut the excess off. I'm going to use a pair of Fat Daddy cutters. We've embellished ours with a lovely flat back crystal. I'm going to go ahead and take this. We're going to go down very close to the bolt. And I'm going to cover the excess so it doesn't hit anybody. Cut that off. rotate it, and we're going to do the same thing all the way around. Once we have those all cut off, I'm going to grab a file. I have a flat file here. It's great. It's going to take off the sharp excess that the cutting left behind, and we're going to smooth that down so it's nice, beautiful, and flat. Sometimes I will sacrifice my finger because I don't want the file to accidentally graze the crystal, so I will put my finger there to stop the file. And I'm just going to go forward with my file. If it's easier to pick it up and work, then I'll sacrifice my thumb. I don't want anything to happen to that beautiful crystal. And you'll notice that I'm not only just taking off the excess bolt, but I'm smoothing it down to the nut as well. So that we have a nice, really flat surface right there, rather than a pointy one. And we're just going to rotate and do that all around, going forward with our file. Hopefully you're not sacrificing your finger at all and you're just filing beautifully, but on the off chance that your file goes somewhere, we don't want it to hit the stone. And the last one. Once we have this filed down, go ahead and get the metal flecks out of there. We're going to add one more jump ring for the top, because the way that this jump ring is situated, you can't pass a chain through. Otherwise it would just hang like that. We don't want that. So I'm going to grab this lovely ball chain, putting that right there, and I'm going to grab one more copper jump ring. I'm going to take a pair of chain nose pliers. We're going to open this. Oops. Pass that through. Close it up. Then that's situated the right way. We'll take our chain, and then you have a beautiful pendant with a front and a back that's just as beautiful as the front, so you can switch it up and wear it whichever way you like. So here we have samples of the different variations that you can do with the skills that you learned from the project we just did. The top two are actually from our design ideas page, and you'll see that we used 5 different bolts rather than 4. If you really think it's a perfect design feature, you can add more. You could do 6, 7, do the whole border. But we think that this is fun. We just eyeballed the holes. We used like a star as an idea for placement. And then the bottom 2 are done with the circle divider with the 4 bolts. And you'll notice that this one we actually used a beautiful piece of leopard jasper. And we used a cabochon, so you can see it's domed on the one side. We have I Hold You in My Heart. And then on the back, in between the bolts, we have different names for people that you might hold in your heart. And then this one, just like the one we did, we have the stars design stamped on one side and Love Is All There Is stamped on the other. It's nice with Swarovski crystals and gemstones. The front and the back are really beautiful features. Thank you so much for taking my class. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you use these techniques for projects in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us a line at classes@beaducation.com. Thanks again.